Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to our first webinar of 2023, which forms part of the Business and Sustainability webinar series through our virtual Great Lakes Economic Forum. My name is Laura Schrake. I am the Senior Program Director for Business and Sustainability with the Council of the Great Lakes Region, and it's great to have you joining us. In today's webinar, we are going to hear from the Great Lakes Area Vice President at WM, Aaron Johnson, who will share with us what WM is doing to drive sustainable and circular solutions. He'll highlight their approach to reducing recycling gaps and talk about collaborations and investments that are supporting recycling collection and capacity in Great Lakes communities. I'm especially excited about the topic of today's webinar, closing recycling gaps and driving a circular value chain in the Great Lakes. It connects very closely to the Council's ambition and vision for a circular economy and forging a future without waste in the Great Lakes. We do have a lot of people attending today's webinar, which is fantastic. And while I hope that many of you are already familiar with the Council of the Great Lakes region, for those who may be learning about us for the first time, I will go ahead and take a few minutes to introduce you to the Council and to our work. The Council of the Great Lakes region is a binational network of organizations that is committed to finding solutions for socioeconomic and environmental issues facing the North American Great Lakes region. We connect diverse interests and sectors, we convene regional stakeholders, and we cultivate a united voice on issues facing the region. Issues like circular economy and forging a future without material waste and litter, for example. And we do this by leading collaborative programs and engaging businesses to help drive sustainable solutions throughout the Great Lakes region. Today's webinar is also part of our growing Business and Sustainability Network, an effort that is funded by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation. And it seeks to get the region's companies and business leaders engaged in critical policy conversations about protecting our environment and the Great Lakes while supporting the region's economic growth and competitiveness. This work is important and necessary because working together to strengthen the region's economic success and sustainability is key for the long-term success of both the US and Canada. The region is the guardian of one of the largest freshwater systems in the world, holding around 20% of all of Earth's surface freshwater and providing drinking water for over 40 million people. And economically speaking, with a GDP of roughly $6 trillion US, the region serves as North America's economic engine and would equal the third largest economy in the world if the region was a country. So quite significant. We know that no one level of government or sector in the Great Lakes has the power, the knowledge, and investment necessary to solve the region's challenges on their own. That is why we have created multi-sector and multi-stakeholder programs by bringing industry, government, academia, and other nonprofit groups together. We are advancing the priorities, projects, and partnerships that are necessary for a sustainable region. Our current focus areas include topics important to the region, like circular economy, water stewardship, and also decarbonization. But given today's webinar topic on closing recycling gaps and driving a circular value chain, I want to highlight the Circular Great Lakes Initiative in particular. The Council of the Great Lakes region and its Circular Great Lakes partners are working towards a scalable circular economy strategy for plastics in the region, setting the stage for targeted actions and partnerships over the next 5 years. A 5-year Great Lakes circular economy strategy and action plan has been prepared, which prioritizes 3 main areas. First is capture and cleanup, to stop the plastic waste and litter from entering the Great Lakes. Second is collection, processing, and end markets to accelerate the development of plastic packaging recycling supply chains and markets, with a focus first on flexible plastics. And third, policy and consumer education to achieve step change in plastics recycled quantity and quality through our policy and consumer behavior. If you are interested in today's webinar, then you may also be interested in the Council's Circular Great Lakes initiative. And we are inviting businesses to engage with us in this initiative, as well as our other program topic areas. So I encourage you to reach out should you be interested in getting involved, or if you're interested in any of the other topic areas that I mentioned. I will put a link in the chat, and you can also reach out to us by email if you're interested in learning more about the Council's programs. Certainly, the more involvement we have in collaborative programming, the greater our collective impact across the region. Forging a future without waste is certainly a monumental task facing the binational Great Lakes economic region and watershed, as well as the rest of the world. The importance of this work is magnified by some of the statistics that we are seeing through our own work with Circular Great Lakes, but also from others, such as the US EPA. According to the EPA, the national recycling rate in the US is 24%. And in the binational Great Lakes region, only about 18% of plastics are being recycled, which is a statistic that's on par with national figures in both the US and in Canada. So shifting to a circular economy, ensuring a sustainable future is a must. The innovative management of materials is not an option. With research and innovation, investments and sustainability commitments, companies are really holding the key to fostering sustainable long-term circularity solutions. And our guest today is working to solve these challenges. Today's webinar speaker is from WM, North America's largest comprehensive waste management and environmental solutions provider. WM provides collection, recycling, and disposal services to millions of residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal customers throughout the US and Canada. They are the largest recycler of post-consumer materials and also the leader in beneficial reuse of landfill gas. During the time we have for today's webinar, we can look forward to hearing about WM's journey from a waste management company to an integrated sustainability solutions company, and learn about their investments in recycling to help solve the waste challenge and drive circularity in the Great Lakes region. Following the presentation, we will have time for a short Q&A session before we close the webinar. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the Zoom Q&A box. And with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce this month's webinar guest, Erin Johnson. Erin is the Area Vice President in the Great Lakes at WM. Waste management is not only a lifelong priority for Erin, but it's a meaningful and impactful career that first started with his great-grandfather's family business in Northwest Indiana. I'll let Erin tell you a little bit more about his very interesting background, as well as the pivotal work WM is doing specifically in the Great Lakes region. So Erin, thank you so much for being here with us, and I will hand it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Laura, and thank you for giving us this platform. It's quite a distinguished list of attendees, and we're always happy to share our story. Hopefully this doesn't come across as a WM commercial and more of a thought-provoking conversation, an opportunity for us to maybe highlight some innovation that's going on across the industry, share some ideas that hopefully can be spread not just by WM, but by other companies to accomplish the same overall goals. A little bit more about myself. I grew up in the industry, fourth generation. This is what I always wanted to be, a professional garbage man when I grew up. Proud to say I attended the #1 ranked basketball school in the country, Purdue University, And when I came out thinking I was going to be the next fourth generation owner of our family's business, my father sold his waste company to WM back in 2003, just 3 months after I graduated. So this is really the only place I've ever worked. I've been with WM now for 19 years. I've worked with WM in the Indiana market. I moved out to California for some time, worked out in the California Bay Area, came back, spent 8 years in Chicago as the district manager of 3 of our large Chicago districts that service Chicago and the greater Chicagoland. Worked in corporate operations, was a director of operations for North America for WM. And then I spent the last 4 years, I was the president of Waste Management Canada, moved my family up to the Toronto land area, lived in Oakville, just outside of Toronto, serving as the president of WM Canada. And then 2 years ago, was fortunate enough to move back and kind of have my dream job as the area president for the Great Lakes area, which for us is Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. I know if Great Lakes is much bigger than just those 3 states, and we have an audience here that represents much larger than just these 3 states. So that's a little bit about me. So when you switch to the next slide, we made a subtle change a year ago. We went from waste management to WM. Seems like a small change. Why do we do it? We used to be a garbage company back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. We were the Burgundy Waste Management Company. Started in Florida, but really grew in the Chicagoland area, and then started migrating across the Midwest until we eventually went nationwide. And we've always just been this trash company, landfill company. I would say in the late 90s, early 2000s, we became synonymous with recycling. We started to make a lot of electricity out of our landfills. Just recently we said, we're not a landfill company or garbage company. We're a sustainability company. So we don't, taking the word waste out of our name, we're not just a waste company. We're a waste recycling. We're an energy producing company as much as we are a waste company. So we want WM just to be more of a sustainable name, brand, and recognition. If you go to the next one, just WM at a glance for credibility purposes, you see a little bit. I'm not going to read all these numbers to you. I think we can probably give you the presentation afterwards, but some of the highlights here, 340 transfer stations. It's a pretty big network, 255 active landfills. I think we currently manage around 45% of North America's total waste volume through our landfill network. So we see a lot of waste. We have 5 hazardous waste landfills. We also have a couple hazardous waste deep wells, some here in the Great Lakes region. We're the largest producer of renewable energy in the North American market when you talk about secondary energy sources. 137 total recycling and composting facilities, 177 properties that are active habitat wildlife projects, representing just over 13,000 total acres of dedicated wildlife preservation. That's a little bit about our footprint and our size and scope of our facilities. So if you go to the next slide, we start kind of getting into that sustainable circularity conversation and start seeing where the technology and innovation lies. We've kind of built our strategy on 4 main pillars: so the modern landfill, recycling infrastructure, integrated organics, and what we call circular logistics. If you just kind of focus on modern landfill real quick, we recently announced earlier in 2022, $825 million renewable natural gas investment that we're making over the next 3 years. We're going to be, at the end of this investment, these 17 projects that we currently have, and I'll go through like where some of these are in the Great Lakes area, because that makes up a good portion of these. These new investments represent, we're going to be providing enough natural gas to power over 1 million homes with these 17 sites that we're converting over. A modern landfill is taking an organic material, a 2x4, the pizza box that you can't recycle, the dirty diaper, all those organic materials, as they break down and create methane. These modern landfills, we capture that methane, and through a series of engineering, we produce either electricity by powering generators, or we can clean and compress and scrub and demolecularize that material and make it into a natural gas that we feed into the pipeline. So we either sell our electric to the grid or we sell our gas to the pipeline, and it's what you use at your home to turn your lights on or to light your oven and stove or your furnace. Also part of a modern landfill, not just the gas that's created, but it's how we monitor the gas. You know, when you look at the world's largest contributors towards greenhouse gases, they're usually oil refineries, and landfills or incinerators make up big contributors to greenhouse gas. We don't create the waste that's in them, but it has to go somewhere, and where it goes, that is a centralized location of big contributors of greenhouse gas. We're aware of that. Our priority is to eliminate that. So what we've invested in, and we're trying to be ahead of the industry, is monitoring it. So through drone technology and satellite technology, you can identify methane migration that's coming from a landfill site. And you can better what we call daily capping. You can put more or better materials on your landfills to cap that so the gas isn't migrating out and escaping into the atmosphere. You can insert more wells, extract more gas. You can create more suction or more vacuum, where, you know, what happens is you build these landfills, they're a big mound. You only see maybe half of a landfill that's above ground. A lot of it's below ground at its widest and deepest point. But on one side of a landfill, you have compression where you're forcing air into a landfill, and on the opposite side, you have a suction where you're sucking air through the landfill. So you're trying to suck the air out of the landfill before it escapes, and that's where we're collecting our gas. And this happens through a series of wells. We have a total of 33,000 wells that we've drilled in our active landfill sites. To put it in perspective on gas production, each well, if you think we measure gas production in cubic feet, you know, picture a party balloon. One well can make about 10 to 20 party balloons per minute of gas. And we have 33,000 of those. So that's a lot of gas that every minute is being generated at just our landfills. You know, there's a lot more landfills that we don't own where that same amount of gas is being produced. So a modern landfill is, we're creating energy out of the organic material, but we're also using technology now to monitor migration. We don't want the methane to escape. It's a valuable resource. We can sell that and monetize that. The last thing we want is it to escape and get into the atmosphere and contribute to the greenhouse gas problem that we have. We're also looking at automated wells right now. You know, old school wise, you would have gas technicians at these landfills with really a pad of paper and a pencil, and they go and they pressure read each individual well weekly, monthly, whatever the need is. There's now technologies where you can put remote automated technology to constantly, continuously monitor these wells, detect when you have an issue. Because these landfills move so much, things are settling, there's compaction, there's decomposition. So as these things move, your well lines get plugged, they get pinched, they get crushed, they get bent. You have to know when you have a pressure issue so you can go and repair those wells, or else the gas begins to escape. So that's a modern landfill. When you look at recycling infrastructure, we also pledged another $800 million of investment over the next 3 years into modernizing and building out new capacity. A lot of this is in the Great Lakes footprint. What we're trying to do is build what we call MRFs of the future, material recovery facilities of the future. We built our first one in Chicago. We're using automated technology with pneumatic sorting, optical sorting. There's robotics involved, new ways to process glass, and take out a lot of historical manual labor. They were low-paying jobs. They were hard to fill jobs, very high turnover, and a lot of the cost of recycling was the labor to separate. And then you weren't getting a really clean product to begin with because the quality of labor wasn't always great that was doing the separation. So through the use of technology and machinery, we can automate these, and we're capturing more materials, and we have less residue coming out of the back end of these plants. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later. The third component in our pillar is integrated organics. This is really a build, buy, or partner approach to organics. You got to look at organics is more of a regionalized opportunity. It depends on how much is being produced. Some are transfer markets, some have anaerobic digestion, some are composting facilities. So really organics, there's no one size fits all solution. It's really regionalized, and what outlets do you have? Sometimes you can partner with farm anaerobic digesters and feed those systems as you can subsidize the energy production. Sometimes it's composting in vessel, out of vessel composting. And really there, it's important you're measuring carbon footprint. When you consider your options, let's use science-based technology to consider, do we want to buy a technology, build a technology, or do we want to partner with somebody who maybe has technology so that we can extend options to our customer base as a solution for their organics? It's a complex puzzle. And again, I can't stress enough how regionalized it is. It's a different option in Toronto versus what options you have in, say, rural Ohio or Pennsylvania. And the last component or pillar is circular logistics. This is the piece that makes the circular economy work. Consumers consume and they create waste. It takes somebody to collect it, somebody to process it, somebody to maybe size or clean, and then to deliver it to a manufacturer and find a manufacturer that has the capabilities and the technology to turn that into a new widget. So we look at ourselves as a circular logistics company where we can go to your home or your place of business, collect your waste streams, whatever type of stream it is, a plastic, a glass, an organic, and we can process anything. We can commingle and consolidate, and then we look for buyers of those commodities that can then turn it into a new good, whether that's an energy or whether that's a new product, a consumable product. So if you go to the next slide, we're just kind of transitioning into how do we cultivate sustainability infrastructure and really focusing in on the Great Lakes regional states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Ontario, and Quebec. If we go to the next slide. So we as part of switching to WM from waste management, we redefined our approach of who we are. We power your grid. Our landfill gas fills your pipelines so you can turn on your furnace or your stove. We roam your neighborhoods collecting your materials with our compressed natural gas vehicles. For each we have the largest fleet of compressed natural gas vehicles in the world. We're approaching 70% of our total fleet now is powered off of natural gas. For each natural gas truck that we put on the street that replaces a diesel truck, we're reducing our emissions by 90% on that route. So across the Great Lakes area, we're approaching 80% of our routes now run on natural gas. So we're reducing our emissions in your neighborhoods by 90% when we bring one of those trucks through. Landfills, we're looking at those. They're a fuel source. Through the technology, we're able to power our complete fleet of vehicles from renewable natural gas. And so think of the circularity of that. We take a vehicle out, collect waste stream with a truck that's powered off the natural gas that waste stream produces. So the waste we pick up fuels the fleet that's out there doing the pickup. That's about as circular, I think, as you can get, and it closes the loop. If you go to the next slide, let's talk about the investments in RNG, renewable natural gas infrastructure that's happening in the Great Lakes region. When WM talks to our shareholders about the investments we're making, these are in the facilities where we own all the gas rights. So we're investing in our own production of gas. We also have some of our gas plants on our sites where we've partnered with third parties where we sell our gas rights to them and then they manufacture it. A lot of this was done in the 80s and 90s when gas wasn't worth much. And that's when we started producing electricity. The economics have changed. It's now much more economical to create natural gas versus electricity. And hence we're going back to some of those third party agreements where we had an electric producing contract or arrangement, We're saying, hey, if we want to take this gas and now convert it into natural gas versus electric, what does that new partnership look like? And so let me just highlight a few changes that are going on in the places where you live, work, and enjoy. When at Canada, we have two big projects going on. Twin Creeks landfill, it's the largest landfill in Ontario. That project is beginning in 2023 and should be complete at the end of the year. That facility does like 1.4 metric tons per 1.4 million metric tons per year of volume. It's going to be one of the largest renewable natural gas plants in all of Canada. And then simultaneously, we have a project going on in Quebec at our St. Sophie landfill. I believe that's the largest landfill in all of Canada. And when it is complete in 2024, that will be the largest renewable gas project in Canada. That one project alone, just one site for visual perspective, St. Sophie, just outside of Montreal on the north side, that one site will produce enough natural gas to fuel 1,700 garbage trucks every single day for the next 20 years. It'll do that every single day. That's more than the entire fleet of vehicles we have in Canada. So we'll be supplying that back into the pipeline. In Minnesota, our Elk River landfill is under construction, where we're building a new renewable natural gas facility there just outside the Twin Cities. In Wisconsin, our Cranberry Creek landfill is getting a new renewable natural gas plant. When you look at Illinois, our Orchard Hills landfill has a new renewable natural gas plant being constructed. In Indiana, we have three facilities: our Twin Bridges just outside Indianapolis, Prairie View up in South Bend, and our Liberty landfill kind of in the center, north center of the state. Those are partnerships with third parties, so that's not included in the 16 natural gas facilities being constructed right now. But those three will be complete in 2023. They are currently today electric producing plants, but they will now be natural gas producing plants. Michigan, we have 4 projects going on, one in Detroit, one in Flint, one in Saginaw, and one in Grand Rapids. The one in Detroit, that's our largest volume landfill in the entire country at our Woodland Meadows location. In Ohio, we have one at our American landfill just outside Canton. So you can see we're changing right here in the Great Lakes as a big portion of that total investment. When you go to the next slide, when we start talking about driving circularity, there's a big component of education that goes into recycling, right? Switching from gas now to recycling. So, by recycling materials, what we're really doing is we're helping avoid greenhouse gas emissions by preventing the mining and manufacturing of products using virgin materials. We're reusing materials that have already been harvested out of the earth. The example is we can take the plastic water bottle. It's an oil-based product. We don't have to go refine new oil to make that. We can take the same plastic and recycle that bottle numerous times, giving it a good second useful life. I think it's important here to use science-based decision making. Some people out there want to have zero landfill initiatives or create other type. I think the initiative here is we all need to measure our carbon footprint and make our choices of what do we do with certain waste streams based on the carbon footprint. So, by recycling plastic, we don't have to refine new oil to make virgin plastic. What else did we want to talk about on this slide? Quality recycle drive. We're buying uniforms now for all of our employees. I'm talking about circularity and recycling. The uniforms we buy our employees are made from the same recycled content coming out of our recycle plants. The plastic that we recycle goes into making our new employee high visibility shirts, their high visibility vest, etc. So we want to also walk the walk. I think on the education front, I want to go back to that. So the smart truck technology, a lot of consumers get confused what's recyclable and what's not. And it's also hard to train our employees of, say a restaurant, of what to do with certain goods. there's the garbage bin, there's the recycle bin, there's the organics bin, what waste streams to put in which. So to have more targeted education versus big generic broad-based broad stroked education, we've installed cameras in every single one of our trucks. So we're detecting through AI technology. We have continuously running video that is forward facing our truck so we can see the containers as we're approaching, but then in the hoppers of our truck as we dump the materials into our truck, that continuously looped video is scanning the waste stream as it's falling into our vehicle, and it's identifying contamination sources. So if you have a recycling container behind your place of business and somebody's putting wooden pallets into the recycle bin, obviously we can't recycle that in a traditional recycling plant. We're going to, through AI technology, we detect that pallet. It notifies our sales rep of, hey, you got a customer here that's contributing high amounts of contamination. We then take that video or those pictures into the customer, and we can have a more targeted educational conversation where we ask our customers to clean up their stream. We don't, because you can cross contaminate a lot of material. If you have like wetty liquids or other products, it can contaminate a whole load of recycling. And so you can contaminate other customers' recycling if we don't clean that up. So that's where we're trying to redefine how we educate. And we're also looking at more virtual classroom type modules that we can use. Old school, we'd build a plant, and then to educate somebody, we'd have to bring people into the plant to explain how it works and what we do. Through virtual technology now, we can walk you through our plant while you're sitting in the classroom through video. A lot of this was unlocked during COVID. You could do new home tours online and think of that. You could walk through a house that's for sale online, room by room, and read descriptions. We're building technology now where you can walk through our plant or walk through our processing line virtually and see how optical sorting works, see what we do with that plastic bottle once the optical machinery separated it, see how ballistic separation works, which just opens the door to be able to distribute it to a much wider audience. So that's how we're driving some circularity. If you go to the next slide, I want to give you some examples that maybe are a little closer to home of what circular economy looks like. We have a recycling plant in Indianapolis. We're also looking at building a new recycling plant in Indianapolis to quadruple our current capacity. And what a circular economy looks like in Indiana is we're taking Indiana homes and Indiana businesses and collecting their recycled material, processing them, and then we're partnering with the Indiana Manufacturing Association to find manufacturers who will use those very goods to circulate those products throughout the state of Indiana. So the same state where the waste is produced, we take the fibrous materials, the cardboard, and we sell it to Pratt Industries up in Valparaiso, Indiana. We take the Cascade mixed paper, and we sell that mixed paper to Cascade, who makes egg cartons in Indiana. I believe it's in Seymour, Indiana. And then we take our plastic and we sell that to DAC, which is in Richmond, Indiana. We take the glass and we partner with companies like Knauf, who spin the glass and make insulation. So we're not shipping these materials overseas. 100% of our plastic stays domestic. You hear about the plastic in the ocean. We're proud to say 100% of our plastic material stays domestic. We're not putting them on containers. We're trying to find homes locally and manufacturers locally that can take these materials and make a new good out of it to be sold locally right back into the economy where the waste was originally generated. So that's what it looks like locally. I could tell the same story in Michigan or Ohio or New York, where we're trying to close that circle with our logistics and our processing capabilities. Let's see, what was next? So advanced technologies that are out there, and this is an industry thing. This isn't just WM. Optical sorters, these are infrared beams. They're sorting based on density of materials. So you can take an optical sorter and adjust it to sort paper. You can brown fibers, white paper, clear plastics, colored plastics. You can change the density readers on that to pick the type of materials you want. Old MRFs had no opticals. Then you'd get a MRF with 1, 2, 3 opticals. We have MRFs now that have as many as 25 optical sorters in them. And these optical sorters, they are what replaces that manual labor. So you can program an optical sorter to detect, say, clear plastic. And as it's going through the line, it detects where it's at. When it gets to the end of the belt, then we use pneumatic separation, air valves that push that material into a bin away from all the other materials and separating it. Robotics, same thing. You've probably seen videos of how these robotics work. This is what we used to focus on: negative separation. We would focus on pulling contaminants out of the recycle stream, which was very labor intensive. Now we focus more on positive separation. Instead of pulling the negatives out, let's just pull out what it is we're looking for. Do we want PET? Do we want HDPE? And these robotics, you can program, they work 24/7. They don't call in sick very often. They do break down, but they're, tend to be easy to fix. And they'll just pick Tide bottles all day if that's what you want them to, or pop bottles. They just pick that one item and you get a very clean product that's very sellable in the market downstream. Fire suppression. We've lost a lot of recycling facilities. Our competition, our industry's lost way too many facilities, mostly due to lithium ion batteries. That's our nemesis right now. There's way too many batteries ending up in the waste streams, causing fires both in our trucks and at our facilities. So we've had to invest considerable amount of money into fire suppression. One of these new recycle centers, we're building one in Detroit right now. It's $35 million facility, and one ion battery could, when you have bales of cardboard, it's like a match. And when that thing lights, they go up quickly, too fast for a fire department to respond. So we have these new technology where we're using infrared heat detection systems. We have mounted water sources and foam guns. So when they detect a heat source, and you can set the temperature, whatever you want it to detect, as soon as it detects that heat, it's instantly being shot with foam or water or whatever product you use to immediately put it out before it spreads. And that saved us quite a few facility fires. A lot of camera technology. There's volumetric scanners. I don't want to get too technical, but there's a lot of technology. I wanted to just share, because of our audience, where some of these facilities are. So we're investing $800 million over the next 3 years to build new facilities. Our goal is to create new capacity. We're creating, I think it's 600,000 tons of capacity per month, new, that doesn't exist on the market today. We're building a facility in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. We're getting ready to rebuild the facility that's in Germantown, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee. We plan to start a project in Indianapolis later this year, hopefully to be complete sometime in 2024. That'll add another 220,000 tons of potential capacity to that market. A city that doesn't have curbside recycling today. Detroit, we have a project that's underway now that'll be open in 2024. In Ohio, we're just completing our Cleveland project that should be open in the next 2 to 3 months. Waiting on an electrical switch with a supply chain issue right now. We're building a brand new plant in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we have a new plant coming online in Monroe County, New York. In Canada, Toronto, we're building a new MRF that'll be complete in 2023. And I know it's not quite the Great Lakes area, but we have one in a brand new plant going up in Edmonton as well. So that's how we're trying to help out in the Great Lakes area. And these plants are all creating capacity that doesn't exist today. And if you go to the next slide, this is hub and spoke model. So I just use this as one example, and most all of our MRFs now, we're applying this same methodology. So in Detroit, we're building a new $35 million MRF, state of the art. It's going to have 15 optical sorters. It's going to add about 210,000 tons of new capacity that doesn't exist today for materials. But there's a lot of spokes so we're making this investment in one plant, but we're opening up recycling capacity to rural pockets of Michigan. So we're going to have what we call transload facilities in places like Traverse City, Harrison, Tawas, Battle Creek, Grand Rapids, of that ICT that's out by Flint, where we'll be able to bring materials in, accumulate, and then transload that material to a place like Detroit for processing. So in our vision, we're expanding recycling to communities that don't have single stream commingled recycling options today. And we hope to be able to provide it in a very economical fashion. You do get into some transportation costs in that model, but again, these are options that don't really exist today in some of these markets. And so when we build out in Pittsburgh, or whether it's Chicago, each of those hubs has multiple spokes that are going to open up capacity in outer line areas to then bring the volumes into these mega plants to further process those materials. I think we can go to, I think we're about done here. So I think this slide was really intended to talk about some of the educational stuff that I already touched on, our smart truck technology, our virtual classrooms, and how we're trying to educate and kind of retell our story. And I think the whole industry, not just us, I think we're all trying to retell our story. I think a lot of us have been wrongly labeled for a long time as these landfill dependent companies. And really it's not about burying garbage. What we're doing is trying to harvest energy. And so all the waste you all create at home, at your business, we feel like there's a good second use, whether we help somebody make it into a new product, or we generate an energy source for you as a needed utility. That's why we want to collect it, not to bury it. We want to do something else with it in a second life, and we're able to monetize that. So I think I can pretty much wrap there, and maybe we can open up some discussion and dialogue. Laura, I don't know if you got some questions or if you want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Aaron. We've got definitely some questions coming in. So, but I first want to start out because you nicely outlined WM's journey from a waste management company to a sustainability solutions provider. And so I wanted to know if you could just maybe highlight a little bit about the importance of partnerships in that journey. And yeah, if you could just sort of maybe start there.
All of this is reliant upon partnerships. We all produce waste, so that's there. But it takes somebody who's willing to make a new product, or make an energy, or consume an energy. We can go out and collect all the products and materials you want. We can go out and collect rubber and process and have big bundles of rubber. But unless there's a partner out there that's willing to make that into a new product, all we're going to do is fill up warehouse space with a bunch of bales of a product nobody wants, right? So we have to have partners. We also have partners along the way that are helping us expand and educate. We just announced a partnership with Dow Chemical about a month ago, I believe it was. And Dow Chemical, they have initiatives and sustainability goals, and so we found common ground where they need more plastic wrap, like flexible plastic film. Well, we collect a lot of it. The problem is it's hard to separate, and it's hard on our equipment. So we've had to re-engineer some of our equipment, and it's often contaminated. But we found a partner. They need the film. We have the film. So what they've said is, hey, we'll partner with you, and we're going to help you grow your footprint. What if we gave you the plastic resin you need to make the recycling carts, so that we can give an affordable option to communities that don't have curbside single stream recycling today? We'll give you the resin to make the carts. Can you go deliver the carts, collect the material, and bring us the shrink wrap? So it's a circular partnership. We're both giving into the equation. We're both making capital investments into the equation. We're collecting something, and then they're remaking something, and they're selling a product. But my point, Pratt Industries is a fiber partner of ours. Yes, there's a vendor relationship there where somebody's paying another, but we have a commodity they need, they buy it from us, but then they make products then that you need at home where you're buying, from Amazon or whoever, and it gets delivered to you in a cardboard box. So it's always partnerships. As long as people aren't trying to be greedy, there's, both parties can win, or three parties, the consumer can win as well, but it's all reliant 100% on partnerships.
Mhm. Yeah, and you mentioned the partnership with Dow, and I saw that announcement recently, and we had published an article on our online Great Lakes Economic Forum as well about it. And I'm curious, I know that with that partnership, there's a pilot happening in the Great Lakes area, actually in the Chicago area, and there is the I'm actually trying to look to see if I have it. Hickory Hills is the name of the town. But how important are the partnerships with the municipalities and the cities where you're operating, and maybe rolling out some of these partnerships and pilot projects?
So this is really important. So, the municipalities oftentimes are the largest customer inside of a recycling plant. Businesses, yes, they have small quantities of recycled material, but when you look at the largest volume producers, a lot of times it's your big municipalities with, thousands of homes and consumer and residents. So, Hickory Hill is a great example of a partnership. So the goal was to recover more plastic film. And I think it's also important to understand, just because plastic film might be recoverable and recyclable in one plant doesn't mean it's recyclable and recoverable at every plant across the country. But this is a location where we intentionally partnered with somebody. We had to retrofit our equipment. The problem with plastic flex film is that it gets wrapped around our machinery, and it's very problematic. It stops our machines from working, and then we can't recycle. The first thing the material usually runs across, you take the contents you generate at home and you put in your recycle bin. It goes across our system. The first thing it hits is a series of auger screens, and these are big auger discs that rotate your cardboard, your big brown fibrous materials. They'll float across the top because they're bigger and they take up more space. Your fine material, your glass, your metal cans, they're small enough where they fall in between these blades. Well, if you have plastic wrap, it gets wrapped around these things, and it can break your machinery. Well, they used to be these small iron bars that would connect these augers, and we've got new technology. They're these much larger axles, I'll call them. And they're square, they're not round, and it prevents the plastic from getting wrapped around them. So we had to retrofit this plant. And then usually so that prevents downtime. And then two, usually you're capturing plastic film through suction because it's so lightweight, you can almost vacuum that material off the stream as it's on a conveyor belt. So we had to install air compression systems and vacuum systems to collect it. So we were very intentional. This is a commodity that we know is in the stream that we're not capturing very well. It's creating a lot of downtime. So we'll retrofit a plant. Here's a community that wants to achieve sustainability goals. And so in that partnership, it worked. And because we retrofitted that plant, now we can then take that option out to the surrounding communities that also feed into that plant and say, hey, here's a new material type that's now acceptable in your recycling program. And we can build off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. There's I guess kind of a follow-up question, and one of our audience members, Rachel, has posed two that I'm going to go ahead and throw both of them at you. One is asking about finding the homes for materials, so those end markets, if that is difficult, and then sort of second to that is around the MRFs, and asking about, should smaller MRFs stay in business, or should modern technology be inserted in old, small regional MRFs?
Yeah, so I'll take the second question first. So this is just Aaron's opinion. There's economy of scales, and I think if you're going to invest in technology, you're buying optical sorting type equipment. that equipment can process a lot of volume quickly, and it's not labor dependent. It's much, so you have a fixed cost item. Each optical sorter is $500 to $600,000. You know, and some of these plants have 15 to 25 optical sorting. You can do the math. It's millions of dollars. It's a fixed cost item. So obviously, the more volume you put through there, the more profitable a recovery facility becomes. We are a for-profit business, so we need more volume per plant. Less volume doesn't work. So, you know, as technology evolves, I think you're going to see smaller MRF recycling facilities dwindle, and you're going to see these bigger mega facilities grow, because there's going to be an economical return and economy of scale that you get, because this technology is not cheap. So you got to have more volume to justify the return on invested capital. The first part, what was the first part of the question?
Finding the end market, or how difficult is it to find the people who will take the material?
You know, cardboard's pretty easy right now. I think there's 8 plants coming online over the next 6 months that are going to add, like, I can't remember, it's like 25% more capacity to the US market. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the commodity trading world. My point is, there's a lot of demand for brown fibrous materials. That's the easiest one to recycle. Metal, obviously, that can be recycled infinite amount of times. Aluminum, and that's been established for 100 years. So that's easy. The plastics get complicated. Yes, the pop bottles, water bottles are easy, but a lot of your mixed plastics, a lot of that goes into like drain tiles and black flexible type tubing. There needs to be more outlets. And so to the researcher community, I know there's some universities and research communities on this call. This is my call to action for y'all is we do need more research in to figure out how we unlock the making of new goods through technology, because we can collect any material and process any material, and so can my competitors, but it takes a willing buyer. We need somebody that wants that over virgin material. And a lot of times it's an economical decision. It's so much cheaper to make a new product out of virgin material because it's cleaner and it's more precise, versus when you're getting a secondary product that's been recycled. It might be a little dirtier. It might not be sized exactly right. It might have colors and clears mixed. So we need research to catch up to the processing capabilities. I think the manufacturing side hasn't kept up pace with the processing capability. I think we can process and capture more than we can manufacture at this point in time. So really a call out to the researchers and the manufacturers of, you know, we need to figure out more ways to make recycled content new goods. And as consumers, I think we have to be willing to pay more for recycled content goods too, because it's not always cheaper to recycle. A lot of times it's more expensive. As consumers, we need to demand that there is recycled content in the goods that we buy.
Yeah, and you may have answered a little bit of this next question, which is coming from Tom, and he's saying that in spite of technical advances and better policies aimed at circularity, the U.S. recycling rate has been stuck at around 32% for many years, and asking what you see as the main barriers. And I noted from your presentation, you talk a lot about technology and innovation and automation. So there's definitely been progress, but there does seem to be some barriers from moving that needle a little bit more. What do you see as those main barriers?
I think what's missing from that story, and we got to open our minds a little bit, maybe this is asking a lot out of especially the environmental community, is it might not, some of these materials, it might seem like we're stuck at a certain percentage of recycled content. However, you know, you take the core of like a toilet paper roll, you know, it's got glue and it's got fiber. You don't always have an outlet for that in certain markets. But when it goes to a landfill that's generating a renewable energy source, is there still some good that's coming out of that? It's not just escaping and creating greenhouse gas and contaminating the ozone. it may be getting recycled into a new energy source. We don't take credit for that as a recycled good, but I think there's still a lot of good that's happening that we don't tell the story well enough. So, you know, I was on the board of directors for EREF. It's the education, it's the Environmental Research Education Foundation, one of the largest nonprofit. It's an industry-wide board. A lot of our competitors and a lot of educational academia are involved. And what we do is nonprofit research. And when I was up in Canada, we conducted a research pilot. I can't remember the university that partnered with us on that one. And we measured carbon footprint, and in particular in organics. And what we found is landfilling organics that generates natural gas is usually the second best option to anaerobic digestion. It's better than composting. You're capturing more of the energy and creating energy without burning fossil fuels. But it doesn't market and sell as well because it's going into a landfill, and people don't understand the carbon offset when you're creating energy. And when we're measuring ourselves and what is the environmental impact, sometimes going into a landfill is a good thing. So I don't want to be just pro landfill. A lot of landfills don't capture gas, don't make renewable energy, and that's not good. But when we say we're only recycling this percentage, sometimes when we're not recycling, there's still other good outlets. Now, to increase that percentage, and I will say we do need to increase that, it's going to be through technology in these MRFs. I think a lot of the new technology is allowing us to extract more materials. But again, ultimately, we can collect all the glass you want. There's not a lot of people that want broken, mixed, dirty glass. So there's going to need to be research done and manufacturers willing to take it on to say, how do we take this dirty mixed cullet and make something out of it? Because right now there's just not a lot of people lining up saying we want glass. It's expensive to recycle, much more expensive than using virgin glass.
Yeah, that's
Silica.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. I think we have about 25 more questions. And unfortunately, we are pretty much out of time. So to our audience who submitted the questions, thank you. We'll take a look at them after the webinar. And if we can get back to you afterwards, I will do that.
One more thing, Laura.
Go ahead, Aaron. Sure.
I had just a couple calls to action with the last minute too. So, I think as a member of the Great Lakes community myself, I live in Michigan, and I also have a lake home in Indiana. So I'm right in the center of the Great Lakes. I think there's a lot of organizations on here that generate revenue that goes towards environmental research. I'm thinking like solid waste districts, state agencies, federal agencies, universities. There's a way to pool some of these resources together to do stuff for the greater good. So my call to action is I'll use solid waste districts, for example. Sometimes they're making decisions in their bubble, but when you look at a state or multiple regions coming together to say, how do we use these resources for the greater good? I think there's some opportunity there as a active member within the Great Lakes community. Researchers, find new ways to use this recycled content in the making of new goods, and consumers demand that your products you buy at the store and online are made with recycled content. So that's all I wanted to close with, Laura. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that's sort of a nice plug for the Council of the Great Lakes region, because that's exactly what we're doing and trying to use our platform for, is to bring together all of the stakeholders, the industry, the government, the academia, other nonprofits, and work across sectors, across borders to find solutions and implement them in the Great Lakes region and scale them up. And the Circular Great Lakes Initiative that I mentioned in the opening of the webinar is sort of that initiative that we're doing around circular economy. So thanks for sort of setting that up for me, Aaron. I do encourage those of you on the webinar who would like more information about how you can get involved in those programs. Please do reach out to us. I'd be happy to speak with you personally, as would any of my colleagues. So again, thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you, Aaron, very much for sharing your insight and your vast experience and knowledge on waste management and closing recycling gaps in the Great Lakes region. I look forward to opportunity to work with WM on driving impact in the Great Lakes region. So thank you, everyone. Dialogues and knowledge sharing like this is so important for supporting the long-term success and sustainability of the Great Lakes region. So I look forward to hearing from all of you and seeing you on future dialogues and webinars. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.